Welcome. It's Friday, June 20th. I am doing this via recording, kind of making this a common practice because I am very busy. I find myself very busy with the turn in the market here. Things are getting busy again, and I find myself pulled away on numerous trips. I'm actually heading to Japan on Friday morning, so I'm recording this Thursday evening. And if I, for some reason, miss something big on Friday and people wonder why didn't he talk about that? Well, it's because I'm in on an airplane, basically on my way to Tokyo. But this week I have a topic that I think is appropriate that we're gonna discuss a number of companies, and I limited this to 30 slides. I find that if I try to go over 30 slides, it gets a little long. Even 30 slides can be a bit long at times. But what I've decided to do this week is talk about a lot of companies that we'll say are back in the saddle. Okay, they're back to drilling. Cash is starting to show up in this market, so these companies are able to go out and finance. They're able to get back to exploration, and I kind of want to reset the tone or the expectations with investors here, at least people that watch us, around some of the stories I've talked about in the past. Because I think as the market picks up here, it's going to get more and more exciting. There's more and more things to look forward to. We're starting to see drills turning again. We're starting to see really these exploration stories, these the theses that were very solid a couple of years ago, but ran out of money. They're starting to pick up steam. Okay, and am I going to talk about every single one of them today? No, I'm limiting it to 30 slides today, and there will be some that I don't talk about this week that I can talk about on subsequent weeks. But I'm going to kind of plow through a series of companies here, one slide each. Okay, one slide each, and I'm going to talk about where they're at, where they're heading, what their plans are this year. If there's an update, I'll mention that. But I really want people to start thinking about, hey, maybe it's time to revisit, relook at some of these stories that we know so well. So again, our thesis here at Crescat is go big or go home. We like to invest in exploration stories that we feel have very large scale potential. They're going to be desirable as buyout targets potentially for a big mining company, say in the future, something like that. That's the kind of exploration company that we invest in, and we do put our money where our mouth is. We help support a lot of these companies. In fact, we've helped reinvigorate a lot of these companies even recently, with cash injections, and others, of course, alongside of us. But we really have done our best to support a large number of exploration companies in the junior market. So let's talk about some of these. Let's go to the next slide. First of all, Alpha. I haven't really talked about Alpha for quite some time, and that's because they have not had the resources to go out and drill, do their work. But basically, they are back in the saddle, and they are drilling at Aberna. But guess what? Anagulu, the first project, this copper gold porphyry target that we actually came into Alpha based around, is going to become a theme again. It's going to become a live thesis. They've done a lot of work around Anagulu to show that they think there might be a viable target there. Very good copper gold grades in the early days. And the drilling that was done back in 2021-ish, in that period, it didn't quite demonstrate a major discovery. It kind of left everyone scratching their head, like, where does this thing go? I think these guys might be onto something, and we're going to see if they can chase it down. So they are going to be drilling at Aberna, hopefully with new ideas in mind that lead to discovery. And now that's on top of Anagulu, I should say. That's on top of Aberna, which is the gold project. They already have what I think is a justifiable discovery, a lot of 100+ gram meter holes, as we know, and they're really they're going to be drilling more to further understand it, but they do have what appears to be a live system here. So, Aberna seems to be a bird in hand, hopefully, in terms of discovery, but this Anagulu project, copper gold porphyry, might once again kind of resurrect, come up from the ashes, and see it like the phoenix here. All right, let's go to the next slide. Altamira, they've done a good job of keeping some momentum going, some degree of momentum going. They have the the Maria Bonita porphyry target at Cajuero, and they did put out a resource around that recently. In fact, they filed that resource here just a few days ago. You can see the NI 43-101 technical report was published, and it was around that resource of indicated and inferred that totals about 720,000 ounces of gold. Yeah, it's low grade, but it is metallurgically very friendly, and it's part of what appears to be a much, much bigger system. I know that the company has a large number of targets further identified across the property. Using the inverted cow model, we see a number of apophyses, basically fingers of intrusion that are poking up. That might tell us we have multiple discoveries. Don't forget, in the central zone already, there's about a 600,000 or 700,000 ounce resource, which is on top of this. So we're already north of 1,000,000 ounces here. But what's really cool is there is good evidence. Good evidence there's more of these targets, but also that there's more aerial extent to things like Maria Bonita. And I think what we're going to see is the company further drill Maria Bonita to see if that grows. But we're also going to see them subsequently test a lot of these new targets, see if they can kind of build up a critical mass here. What do I think is present? Look, it's hard to, just conjecture, arm wave around these things, but I'd say with the 5 or 6 different fingers of porphyry they have coming up here, that there's a good shot this could prove to be a multi-million ounce system. Metallurgically friendly, that's great. That means it can, likely be a viable deposit. Don't forget that in Brazil, there is a very well-known deposit, Paracatu, belonging to Kinross, that has similar grades, and it is a mill operation. Okay, so that's an example of what can be done in this kind of environment. I'm really glad to see the company kind of pull it together. They're evidently doing a raise. We don't talk about raises per se on the video here, but what I would say to people is that it's probably time to start looking at Altamira once again, because I think they'll be able to start work here soon, and this might be a good entry point for investors. So just my 2 bits. Go to the next slide. All right, Blue Lagoon. This is not really so much an exploration story as it is a development story at this point. Blue Lagoon managed to pull off getting a permit to operate the Dome Mountain mine, which is basically a high-grade vein system that is already in resource stage. I think there's a bit over 200,000 ounces in resource. Very high grade. It's something around 0.5 ounce per ton. And this deposit is going to be developed and then toll milled through the milling operation at Nikola Mining, as you can see here. In fact, Nikola put in money into this placement. So I think there's a lot of energy behind this story. A lot of investors want to see it succeed, including Nikola, who is going to be their partner in terms of processing this material. Okay, they have the money apparently to get this into operation. They have a targeted start date of early July. I anticipate being at site during the opening of this. I'm very anxious to see the deposit firsthand. I'm also interested to see where the company thinks that the exploration side of the story might resume. Okay, the gold market's picking up. Maybe this is time to start thinking once again about exploration, and I do think there's a good upside here at Dome Mountain and the property surrounding. All right, so let's hope they can pull all this off. Another one to keep an eye on in the coming weeks. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Brixton Metals. It's resumed drilling up at its Thorn Copper Gold Project. As we know, there are porphyry copper deposits here. Copper moly, I should say, a bit of gold in them, but there's also what appears to be an alkaline gold system, in particular Trapper. I think that Trapper Gold Project, in my book at least, it looks like an alkaline gold system, and it looks quite interesting. And the company has plans to test both some new targets around the Camp Creek area as well as gold mineralization at Trapper. It's a modest program this year. You can see 8,000 to 10,000 meters, but they're going to test numerous targets, and I'm quite anxious to see if they make new discovery, particularly around the porphyry, new porphyry targets that they've identified around Camp Creek. Usually porphyries occur in clusters. I think there's multiple porphyries here. I remember flying up the valley above the Camp Creek discovery a couple of years ago when I was at site and seeing the huge alteration systems up the valley and thinking, gee, there must be more of these porphyries tucked in here somewhere. So maybe we'll find out this summer. So another story to watch over the coming weeks. Go to the next slide. Condor. Okay, it's been ages since news has come out of Condor. Permitting in Peru has been slowed down, but they seem to be accelerating once again. I don't know what the deal is in Peru, but things are either glacially slow or all of a sudden they move very quickly. And what we're seeing are DIAs. These are basically drill permits get approved here recently, and one of those is for Cobre Orco, which is one of the highest quality assets that Condor has. It is an earn-in joint venture with Teck Corporation, and you can see Teck has successfully got their DIA, so their permit, so that they can now drill at Cobre Orco. I would expect them to start drilling sometime in the not too distant future. We don't know exactly when, but this is an exciting moment, and it really does kind of light a fire underneath Condor. Once again, we are awaiting that permit for the expanded Pucamayao operation as well. We do have the permit for Huayna Punta as well, and we might actually be able to start drilling there in the not too distant future. All right, so Condor, it's coming back to life slowly but surely, and we're very anxious to see Cobre Orco drilled. Of course, this is a giant copper gold porphyry target. It's a very large scale target. It's in the right neighborhood alongside many other very large systems, and quite frankly, Teck eyed this as a potential large scale discovery. So we're quite keen to see our partners here, Teck, get in there and start drilling. Let's go to the next slide. El Oro, again, a company that's raised some money recently. They're back to work. They've announced, this is a little dated, this is a little over a month old, but they've announced the restart of definition drilling. This is really encouraging. I haven't seen any new results out of the company here yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if sometime in the next couple of weeks we start to see some news trickle in from the restart of this drill program. And I think they're doing the right thing here. They're infill drilling some of this higher grade silver-based metal mineralization, but also testing the tin discovery that's immediately adjacent to the west. And I think that the company has a right vision to build up a critical mass, basically a resource base that could underpin a very robust mine case. I think the infill drilling is going to help them demonstrate improved grades, improve continuity, things like that. And this is a story, especially with silver. Think about it, silver pushing $37 again. This is a story to keep an eye on. All right, so let's wish them luck. Let's go to the next slide. SK's back in the saddle. Our geologists are heading out into the field. In fact, I think they're on their way right now. We have a geologic team that is very savvy in this area in terms of prospecting. They've got a long track record, both here at SK, but also in adjacent properties, like the Brucejack property. So these geos have actually worked in other locations in this neighborhood, and we're very excited to see them follow up on the high-grade mineralization that was found at C10 Vermilion and the Ted Morris area, the TM zone. These are places where last year, in a very short window, they went in, sampled, and they found some extremely high-grade gold veins. What are they? Well, they look a bit like the veins that one might see at Goliath, for example. They're kind of quasi-orogenic, maybe a bit intrusive-related veins that appear to occupy relatively flat structures, but be very expansive. Like there's a wide distribution of these things. As we know, there was a huge Bleg anomaly that was revealed. This is golden stream anomaly that was revealed a few years ago when we did work in 2020, 2021. Now I think we have an explanation for what that Bleg anomaly is, and these guys are going to do the first real serious follow-up work on that target. Hopefully they get to a point where they can actually define some drill targets by late season, and maybe we see what we did in 2020, a situation where once drill targets are identified, we do try to drill a few holes before the end of the season, which usually is about early October in this part of the world. All right, so exciting season coming for SK. Let's go to the next slide. Goliath. Look, I talked about Goliath kind of hitting the ground running a couple of weeks ago. They did hit very quickly. They hit an intrusive, it looks like a reduced intrusive of some sort, which has quartz veins with specks of visible gold. And that was the big news just immediately, after the start of their program. They hit 26 meters in which they saw quartz veining with specks of EG. But what's more important now, I think, and people should understand, is they have a very aggressive drill program this year. They got, I think they're talking about drilling up to 60,000 meters. I mean, think about that, 60 kilometers of holes in this country. And you might say, well, gee, how do they do that? That's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. It's about $550 all up to drill 1 meter of core in this terrain. Okay, but they have in their bank right now, I think, on the order of 46 million Canadian, something like that. So this is one of these companies that is truly well cashed up and is ready to implement an aggressive drill program this season. I've seen just from the news releases the images of their planned drilling and how they're going to approach this with a focus on following up on high grade. Okay, there is a big push to follow up on high grade. I think that's a wonderful approach, and I'm very anxious to see what the company comes up with this year. I think we will see an absolute torrent of news out of these guys. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Hennigh. I've talked about Hennigh multiple times over the past 2 or 3 months because they are very active in Peru. They're kind of up in north central Peru on the east side of the Andes, in an area where there's really no history of mining or exploration. This is true greenfields exploration. And they have identified a whopping big gold system at Provisto, but they also have a copper gold system at Belen that they're currently drilling. So they're drilling right now at Belen. They haven't had an update here in the past couple of weeks, but you can see this news release comes from just at the beginning of the month. They have an ongoing program at Belen, which is the last bullet there in the slide. But you can see the news that they have about extending and expanding the gold target at Provisto. So and that one in my book is very, very interesting. It looks like a large-scale alkaline gold system. It is completely untested, really no history of prospecting, mining, anything. It was found through good old grassroots stream sediment sampling, Blake sampling, in fact. And I think the company is going to have a very exciting couple of years. Okay, so this is one to keep an eye on for a long, long term. When might they get the drill permit for Provisto? Look, they got the one at Belen in about 6 or 8 months. Can they do that at Provisto? Perhaps. Okay, so maybe we see that permit come in 6 months, 12 months. I don't know, something like that. But when they test that, I'm going to be there. I think this is one of the most exciting gold stories in the exploration world right now. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Inflection. As we all know, Inflection Resources has a joint venture agreement with Anglo Gold across a very broad base of prospects in New South Wales. They're all porphyry targets, porphyry copper gold targets that are buried. They're part of the Macquarie Arc, and that terrain through there is kind of flattish. It's been buried by a thin veneer of cover rocks. But Anglo is currently diligently exploring that portfolio of targets. As we know, Duck Creek in particular looks like perhaps an incipient discovery. Be very anxious to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up one day and see that there's a discovery there. But on top of that, recently, Inflection signed a deal with Newmont to acquire a portfolio of copper gold exploration opportunities elsewhere in Australia. You can see that they've got some in Northern Territory and New South Wales. Tennant East, which is up in the Tennant Creek area, it's part of the Northern Territory. It's up in the north west part of the Northern Territory. It's an IOCG camp, and it has smallish but discrete high-grade targets. The district is well known for producing very high-grade copper gold discoveries. And these guys have one of the choicest land packages in that district. And it's very interesting. I was down in Australia a couple of weeks ago, and one of the discussion points was that Tennant Creek seems to be garnering a lot more of attention lately. So for these guys to pick this land package up right in the middle of a district that looks like it's really starting to get some attention here, I think is a coup, and I would say that they might be in the driver's seat when it comes to consolidating the greater district. They also picked up this Bell River project, which is part of the Macquarie Arc. So this is basically the same neighborhood as the projects that they have with Anglo Gold, and they do have some more porphyries in this particular case. How are they going to treat those? Maybe they add them to the existing earn-in joint venture agreement with Anglo. I don't know, but they're further high quality exploration targets down in the same terrain in New South Wales as what we already see the company working on with Anglo. All right, so this is quite exciting. Very good move on their part. It's good to pick up projects like this in an upticking market. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Irving, this is actually why I'm going to Japan. I was very excited about the results out of recent drilling. This is up at OMU, which is part of our OMU Gold Project in Hokkaido. We're doing some shallow drilling with our earn-in joint venture partner, JX Mining. JX happens to be the largest mining company in Japan, and we're delighted to have them as partners because they have a very serious approach about drilling up OMU and OMU Center and OMU to a point where we could potentially build a smelter flux operation. Okay, so our goal is to find silica-rich rock with gold and silver credits that could be used as smelter flux in the various smelters across Japan. And we're starting to see that. The results from a recent hole that you can see here tell us that we have a very expansive silicified system, shallow, that could meet the requirements we're looking for. Okay, so I want to go see this firsthand. We're drilling more holes right now. We've got, I think, 4 more holes that have either been drilled or are being drilled right now. And I think we're going to see many, many more results like this. So I'm very anxious. I am going to go to Yamagata as well. That's in the south of Japan. It's down in Kyushu. And that's our Hishikari analog. There is a hole being drilled there right now, which is, in my book, a bigger step out. It's a real big test of the geophysics and expression of the underlying hydrothermal system at Yamagata. And I'm very anxious. I hope that when I'm there, they're kind of down into the critical part, the targeted depth, we'll call it, of that hole. And I hope to see something exciting. So I will see this firsthand. Irving, cashed up, ready to go. They've got great joint venture partners. Should have a lot of news coming over the next few months. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Intrepid. I think they raised money earlier this year, and they are out drilling again. So they're drilling at the Corral Copper Project in Arizona. And already they've hit a very interesting interval. You can see 142.3 meters of a 0.5% copper. And there is a bit of gold. Okay, there's 0.17 gram per ton gold, as well as a sniff of silver. And there is higher grades within that. You can see some of the sub-intervals listed down below there. Okay, this, in my book, is not a porphyry system, which most people look at Arizona and think, this must be a porphyry copper system. It's not. It's something different. It's more likely some sort of IOCG type system. And I'm glad to see this drilling being done because this hole appears to be a true exploration hole where they're stepping out, looking at new extensions of the mineralized system, and they're starting to see extensions of that what's already known. I really encourage the company to continue pushing exploration and trying to expand this system, which I hope they do with this cash they have in hand. But this is a good story, good location, and it's the right time in a market for a new discovery or a bigger discovery, we'll say, of copper gold in a great jurisdiction like Arizona. All right, so another one to watch. Let's go to the next slide. Juggernaut literally is a juggernaut of cash raising. They have raised a very large sum of money. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but it's more than sufficient to tackle the Big One project aggressively this year. Big One is up in the northern part of the Golden Triangle, so it's almost a polar opposite end of the Golden Triangle from Goliath, but it seems to be a very similar system. There are gold, silver, rich polymetallic veins. Again, they're kind of somewhat flat, but they're thick. They're multi-meter veins, and they have a very expansive expression. Like they're distributed over many square kilometers. these guys are totally stoked. A lot of the same team members of Goliath also work with Juggernaut, and they say this is every bit as exciting as Goliath. Um, has it been drilled yet? No. Okay, but they're going to do a lot of field work this year, sampling, mapping, and develop those drill targets. The company did mention it's drill ready up there in the title. It's not quite okay. They really, what needs to happen here is they need to do some geology and define the drill targets before they go in and say it's drill ready. Okay, they also have to get some permitting done for whatever they deem a drill target. So we got to be a little bit patient. Can they drill later this season? Perhaps. Okay, that's the hope. Maybe it's next year, but it doesn't bother me one way or another. I think what we'll see out of this story by the end of the season is a lot better knowledge around this, the extent of this vein system, the grades that they see in these veins, and their width and orientation and so forth. Maybe they get a few drill holes across it, but maybe they also get some vertical channel samples across the veins too, which is equally important. All right, exciting story. Maybe it's the next Goliath. We'll see. Let's go to the next slide. Kingfisher. Kingfisher had, as we know, they did a hard pivot away from the what was it called? Cloud Break Project, I think it was called, which was further south in BC. Now they're up in the Golden Triangle, and they have their Highway 37 project, which is in the Golden Triangle. So this is kind of a north central part of the Golden Triangle, not too far from some other well-known porphyry districts like the Kerr Sulphurettes, Mitchell, KSM area. And the geology of this property looks very, very similar. It's also got some, some similarities to analogs like Galore Creek, which is in the neighborhood too, even Red Chris, which is not too far away. All right, so Kingfisher has done a very good job of assimilating a very high quality land package here, and they have got early targets identified, we'll call it. But I think their plan this year is to get in there, do some boots on the ground work, and then further refine their targets so they can do some drilling this year. I think they're going to actually test a number of targets on the order of 4 or 5, I think, or something like this. All right. They're looking for copper, gold, porphyries, maybe some epithermal mineralization associated with those, but they are big systems, and I'm very, very hopeful this company can make a brand new copper gold discovery that we all want to see right in the heart of the Golden Triangle. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Magotes. I talk a lot about Magotes. I'm very excited about this. This image sums up what they're seeing at, in terms of high quality targets. This Los Magotes porphyry target, which is immediately on trend and immediately south of the Filo del Sol project, the Aurora deposit, essentially, looks very, very intriguing. I talked about this a week or 2 weeks ago, rather. The reason I bring this slide back to everyone's attention is because the theme of today's talk is let's start focusing on companies that have, a compelling story that is going to unfold over the next few weeks, few months, maybe a year or two, as this market turns around. And I think these guys, first and foremost, they have done a really good job raising money here recently. They got some strategic investment in very, very recently, and they will be in a good position to start work once the season commences again, and that's later this year. Now we're in late June, so we're about 2 months into the winter cycle in South America. I would say give it about 3 or 4 months, and they'll be able to start work again. So spring comes September, October, something like that, and I think we'll see these guys in a very good position, both cash wise and technically speaking. They have the goods. They have the targets identified. I really hope that late this year, early next year, we see Magotes be an equally exciting discovery to Filo del Sol, but perhaps even like NGEX's recent discovery up to the north. So look, this is elephant land. They've got an elephant scale target here. They actually have more targets across their property, but this Los Magotes is just one to die for. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, Newfound. We got new personnel in place, development type people. Paul Hewitt, of course, as the chair. And I did talk to Eric about Newfound. I think it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's very excited that Paul's in place. and that the rest of the team there, Keith Boyle and so forth, are in place, because now the project can move towards development. And I think, in spite of the resource, which I commented on, being a bit underwhelming, and I think perhaps even understated, at least my view, I think that the company's now in a position to advance this thing and do the right thing, demonstrate to the world that this is a super high quality gold asset that can be developed. And you can see that the work they have outlined here, this is the 25 work program, is geared towards the development side of this. Yes, they're going to do some drilling, no question. They have to. They got to infill and better understand certain things. But most of the work they have listed here is geared towards developing a PEA and doing baseline surveys and other work that has to be done in line with permitting a project and making it move forward. So kudos to them. I'm really excited. I think over the next year or two, this is one where we could see it move towards development, kind of come full circle in the Lassonde cycle, right? All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Novo. I was in Australia. I mentioned John Bull as my favorite target at Novo a couple of weeks ago in the recording I did from Australia. I reiterate it here. I looked at the data with my team and stuff, and I'm really excited about this prospect. Okay, John Bull is in New South Wales. It's northeast New South Wales, so it's opposite side of the country from Perth, but it is a reduced intrusive type system. It's almost like what we see in the Yukon. Okay, it's very similar geologically, but it's in Australia, in an area that I think could host a very large gold deposit. The footprint of anomalism here, the soils and stuff, really smell like it could be a very, very robust gold system. And I can't wait to see these guys drill. I would expect within the next 2-3 weeks, we start to see drills turning here. And at that point, I'll hopefully be able to provide more update. But exciting restart to exploration at Novo. Let's go to the next slide. Onyx Gold. Onyx, of course, has projects in the Yukon, but they also have their Munro Croesus project near Timmins, Ontario. So this is in Ontario. And they have done a pretty hard pivot. They're focused like a laser right now on Munro Croesus because of the discovery they had. They had a very, very good hole not too long ago, 3.4 grams over 69.6 meters. You know, that's 1/10 of an ounce of gold over nearly 70 meters. That's pretty darn remarkable in my book. And it is a new target. It's basically a new structure that was identified that's kind of subparallel and below the known gold structure on the property. And quite frankly, the company feels excited enough that they got a second drill turning here. So this is a story that might unfold over the next few weeks, few months, maybe, who knows, maybe we have another Great Bear or something like that on our hands. Can't promise anything, but it does look very, very interesting. I like to see grade in the system, and this one certainly smells like it's delivering grade. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Rackla. Rackla is they've just announced that they're back in the, mobilizing crews and getting back in the field. What is their focus this year? Well, it's this grad target, which is a reduced intrusive gold target. So this is a valley-like target. And, looking back at the photographs that they released late last year after coming out of the field, this is really compelling in my book. I mean, this is just a massive granite intrusion that is riddled with little sheeted quartz veins. They did a channel sample across this thing and got some really nice numbers over a long run. Is it a guarantee? Is there any guarantee in life? No, there's never a guarantee. But boy, this one looks compelling. It's something just my spidey senses say they're onto something here. I'm very excited to see them back at work, and I'm trying to figure out if I can get to the project actually in a visit that I'm going to make to the Yukon mid-July. So maybe if folks from Rackla hear the video here, they can help me try to organize. But I got a little window there around let's see, what is it? I was doing it just a minute ago, but about the 16th, 17th, somewhere in there. No, 16th. Sorry, 16th. I can come out and see grad. All right, next slide. All right, Red Canyon. They have several projects. Red Canyon is exploring for porphyries in multiple locations in BC, even down in the US. The one I really like is this Kendall Project, which is near Terrace. Okay, they did get some interesting results. Hundreds of meters of subeconomic but very interesting mineralization. And the alteration and the mineralization in these holes looks like it's just peripheral, like just beyond the core of the system. So what are they doing here? They're doing MT work, which is basically a geophysical technique to better identify the core of the system, the higher grade part of the system. I want to see them, focus on that and then drill it. Like this is an exciting target. It's in an area that's kind of off the beaten track for porphyry, but this one smells like it could be a big discovery. I'm very anxious to see the company follow up on this. And it looks like this year we will get the MT results, but we might also see them follow up with drilling. Okay, so yet another story we should keep our eye on. Again, they've got some money to play with again, so kudos to them. Let's get back in the saddle. Let's do some work, guys. Let's go to the next slide. Silver 47. And for those of you watching, you probably notice I'm doing these alphabetically. Okay, so if you're on YouTube, you can actually scroll through A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, anyway, Silver 47. This is a story that we first invested in a few years ago based on the Michelle project, which is in the Yukon. It was a very high-grade silver project. But because of some permitting issues, that project was not able to advance. Subsequent, the company decided to look for other assets. Silver basically was their focus. I pointed them to the Red Mountain project, which had basically gone into receivership. It belonged to White Rock, but White Rock unfortunately collapsed during the downturn a couple of years ago, and Silver 47 picked it up out of receivership, brought it back to life, and they are now following up on all of the exciting tests, all the targets and tests that White Rock missed out on. Okay, so I really see this as one of the more exciting silver stories this year. It's a good, robust program. I think they'll actually expand their program. Why do I say this? Well, I don't have a slide on it, but one of the things Silver 47 is pursuing right now is a business combination with Suma Silver. So you're going to see a combination, combined company here that's going to have this project, Red Mountain in Alaska, but also two other key projects. One's called Mogollon, which is doesn't look like it's spelled that way, but it's Mogollon is how you say it. It's down in New Mexico. It's a district I know well. It's a very large-scale epithermal silver district, silver gold district. I love Mogollon. I've always loved it. That's going to give them a target to work on year-round. But they also have part of the Tonopah district out in Nevada. So now Silver 47 is basically agglomerating together a collection of projects, targets, projects that can be drilled year-round. And that way they can get away from that danger of being a seasonality company, with an Alaskan story. And I think that's a good move. It gives them something to work on perpetually. I wouldn't be surprised. I know just from talking with management that their goal is to grow the company into one of the more formidable silver stories in this silver market. So here we got a great story here. I'm very anxious to see what they come up with in this drilling, but also now we got Mogollon. Now we got Tonopah. Even better. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Sitka, this is a bit of an update, but also a bit of a rekindle of the story here. Sitka, of course, is working on the RC Gold Project in the Yukon. This is one of these reduced intrusive gold systems. And they have a number of targets. The inverted cow model comes to fore here. This is one of these large-scale reduced intrusive systems where there's different hypotheses of intrusions that have come up and basically each individually form a gold system. And the question is, how are these things all connected? Are they all tied together? The udder of the cow, where is that thing? All right, now they've done some drilling recently, and they're going to do a lot more drilling this year because they have a 30,000 meter fully funded program. So again, one of these stories that we need to keep an eye on. But they've done a good job demonstrating the scale of this system. One of the things they did recently was extend one of the holes that you can see in this image, the one that's slightly darker here. Excuse me. Hole number 76. They extended it to a bit deeper depth, and they actually hit more gold mineralization. In fact, they hit 65 meters of 2 grams at depth, and that included as higher grade interval 6.3 meters of 5.5 grams. Notice that this hole actually ended in gold mineralization. That's one thing I would point out. And if you look at how the gold is distributed going down the hole, you can see usually when there's a few pops and whistles, they're getting into a new gold system. It kind of leaves you wondering, maybe there's more gold even further down. I don't know. But it does demonstrate that everybody's perception that the gold system was shut off in that hole is incorrect. Okay, this hole had a good interval of good gold, it deeper, and you know once all that's tied together, you can see we have hundreds of meters, like that looks like maybe 600 or 700 vertical meters of gold mineralization along that reduced intrusive dike or vertical body. This is a big gold system and good grades too. Okay. Can it be mined bulk underground? I think so. I personally think so. All right. And that's the prize here, at least in this particular target. This is the blackjack target, but they are drilling now over at Eiger and also in the saddle zone between the two. I think, and given what they're talking about in recent news, I think we're going to see a connection between all these things. Okay. That udder is still the prize here, right? 30,000 meters. Let's watch how this unfolds. I think this season will reveal perhaps a very, very large gold system that could be one of the bigger reduced intrusive systems in the Yukon, to be frank. All right, so exciting, just like Rackla is exciting. Rackla is a bit earlier. This is exciting. All right, let's go to the next slide. We're getting there, I promise. Okay, Snowline Gold. They put out a news release here just today, actually, talking about additional team members that are being brought on. This is a company that's gearing up for taking the project forward through development, quite frankly. I mean, we got some high caliber personnel coming on the operational side. Not to say that Scott isn't high powered. Scott is one of the best CEOs I've ever seen in my career, but he knows to bring on good, solid people to work around him. And I'd love to see the company make these steps. I do think this is a company maker in terms of a discovery. It's one of the few that we've seen in recent years. It would be just a delight to see this story unfold as a company maker. Okay. Can it get taken over too? Yeah. Maybe somebody comes in and takes it over. Who knows? But as a standalone project, I mean, these things come along very rarely. Okay. And one of the most exciting moments that we're being told is coming is in this news release. You can see down there, they've actually announced that the preliminary economic assessment, they're going to have a webinar, basically. What is it? 6 a.m. Pacific time. Boy, Scott's going to be getting up early for that one on Tuesday. So I would say news is going to be out probably early next week around the PEA. Not very often you see a gold company announce they're going to announce the PEA. In other words, usually people don't broadcast it, but they must be just super confident here. Like you know, to see that announced like that smells like this is a winner. Okay, so I'm very anxious to see where this thing lands. I think the economics are going to be robust. We'll see. We'll see how robust they are next week. Okay, so let's hold under our hats here. Again, the company's got lots of cash. They're drilling. They're testing new targets as well. This is a story that's growing. Don't forget that. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, Tectonic has launched their program. This is up in Western Alaska at the Flat Gold Project, and it is a reduced intrusive system. Even though most people, don't think of the reduced intrusions in the Yukon being part of a broader belt, it is. In fact, Fort Knox, which is near Fairbanks, is part of that belt, but we go clear over into Western Alaska, into the Kuskokwim region, and we have projects like Tectonics here, this Flat Gold Project, which is a classic reduced intrusion. These guys hit a very interesting interval of I think it was like 60 odd meters of nearly 1.5 grams late last year at the end of their season over an Alpha Bowl. This is a geographic area where there's a broad scale placer operation in a shallow basin. It is really the center of gravity, the ground zero for gold in that district. And for them to hit a reduced intrusion with gold veining in it is really encouraging. And I think one of the first and foremost objectives they have is to get out there and retest that area. I think they're going to drill some holes in Alpha Bowl here, as well as other targets. But, that Alpha Bowl area, who knows? Maybe they come up with a new valley type discovery here. I'd be just absolutely tickled to see yet another discovery of that ilk made this time, albeit in Alaska. But, go guys, go. You got money. Let's get her done. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Westward. I talked about Westward last video, which is a couple of weeks ago. If you want to go back and look at that, they are gearing up now. They've actually gone out and they've broken ground at the Campfire Target, and they're getting ready to drill in the Toyabe Hills. And this is in north central Nevada. It is a Carlin-type target. It's a target that I spoke about in the video a couple of weeks ago. It's one that I'm very compelled about because I think it is a critical missing piece of the Cortez district. And I think these guys have done an exceptional job defining the target. And we're going to see. We're going to see now if they hit. Are they going to hit on the first hole? There's never a guarantee like that, guys. I mean, that's just crazy talk. Okay. Are they going to test multiple holes? Absolutely. Okay. It's a broad scale target. They've got even new areas that they're recently identifying that might add more information to this target. And that, I would say that the company has enough cash in the bank and enough horsepower here to test a number of holes across the broad scale Campfire Target area, perhaps other areas around the property, in hopes of finding that big missing, we'll call it gold strike like target in the Cortez region here. And this is exciting. Is it a long shot? Sure, everything's a long shot at this stage, but are they swinging for the fence? I think so. I think this is one of these big stories that could be quite exciting. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is the last in my alphabetical series, Yukon Metals. I've talked about them off and on over about a 9 or 10 month period. Last year, they did a lot of work in the field to enhance their targets, and one of them was this AZ property. Okay, this AZ property is a copper gold target. It's probably a skarn system, probably associated with a porphyry or something. And they're drilling now. Okay, they decided this was their highest priority target. They decided to go ahead and drill. And lo and behold, the first hole, they're announcing they see malachite nazarite, down to 22 meters in the first hole. Certainly explains the anomaly they're seeing there. What the grades are, don't know, but we'll know shortly. But I think the company's quite excited by what they're seeing. It's the first hole of many they've got planned for this year. I don't want to build up the anticipation too much, and then people get, well, what happened to that? Well, this project has lots of targets scattered over a very broad area, and they're going to test all of them. So this is going to be an exciting year for this company. It might be like early stage snowline, but for copper gold. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now I've got three brand new stories, and I'm just going to touch on them here. I don't have enough time to go over them in detail, but we have invested in Aztec Minerals Corporation here recently because of the work they're doing at Tombstone in Arizona. Tombstone is a well-known mining district. It's a copper gold district primarily, but there is an epithermal part to the system. And this program that Aztec is commencing here is going to be on that epithermal part of the system. Now, there is CRD mineralization as well, carbonate replacement style mineralization here as well. I'm very interested in that. I'm very interested in the epithermal part, which is more like we'll call it a vein-like or a structurally controlled thing. But I'm also interested in the CRD, which are more mantle or blanket-like things. And the company did hit last year a phenomenal interval. You can see there 569 gram per ton silver equivalent. It was over 25.8 meters, okay? And that included silver and gold. There was a gold kicker in that, so about a 3.5 gram gold within that. I think the follow-up work they're going to do here should show that there's some meat to this thing, to this epithermal system. Great. And I think, it alone could be a significant discovery, but the CRD down at depth, this is down into the limestones below the epithermal part of the system. I think those are where the bigger prize could be. There are CRDs in this area, that produced a lot of metal, a lot of silver, gold, as well as base metals. And I think these guys have done a great job targeting. I'll talk more about Aztec probably in the not too distant future as they get closer to testing those CRD targets. Let's go to the next slide. Orstone, here's another news story. Okay, Orstone, this Francisca Gold Project, which is in Salta province in Argentina. And yes, we are starting to look at Argentina as a viable jurisdiction now, which is a refreshing, event here recently from political winds that have changed in that country. But this project, I remember somebody telling me about this years ago, like years and years ago. And then, Argentina has been a tough place to invest. But I remember thinking, boy, this thing is basically a ridgeline gold occurrence. It's all oxide, okay, and it's following a ridge. So topographically, it's on top of this ridge. And, exactly what type of system it is, we don't know yet. Okay, is it epithermal? Is it maybe porphyry? I don't know. But the numbers out of here are very encouraging. You can see some of the channels there, those two black channels. There's 100 and I can't read it quite, but 100 and something teen of 0.83 gram gold. And then there's another one, 50 odd meters of 3.6 grams, I believe it is, gold. Again, it's on a ridge, it's oxidized. The strike of this system is quite extensive. This is just the southern part of this. It actually continues northward for, I think, 2 or 3 kilometers. It looks like a big gold system. Should be relatively easy to drill. Yes, there was historic drilling, but you can see it was off to the side of the actual anomaly. Why they drilled down there, I don't know. That's a historic drilling that I was referring to. What intrigues me is the gold, which is sitting on top of the ridge. And again, as this company gets down there and they do some field work, probably in the next couple of months, I will talk about the story more as we learn more about it. All right, let's go to the next slide. And I think this is the last one. Yes, Trifecta is new. I might have touched on this in one of the videos in the not too distant past, but look, we have taken a position in Trifecta. It is one of the reduced intrusive stories in the Yukon. Their main project is Mount Hinton. It's a reduced intrusion. It's not far from Mayo. It looks interesting. I'm actually mostly interested in the Rye project, which is further east in the Yukon. It's more closer to Valley, we'll say. But the company is starting work at Mount Hinton. And what they have here are a number of high-grade veins. Yes, there's some beautiful high-grade veins that come out of the granite stock, or the likely igneous driver for Mount Hinton here. But they also have a target developed around potential intrusive hosted, like sheeted vein hosted mineralization. It's a bit more speculative, the intrusive hosted target at Mount Hinton, but they're going to test it and we'll see. Maybe they hit bigly here. But my main focus for Trifecta is the Rye target, which I'm really hopeful that the company gets permitted to drill later this year. They do have good data out there that says sheeted veins, yes, and outcrop, very extensive area with sheeted quartz veins and gold, bismuth, tellurium, all the bells and whistles that we would like to see in a reduced intrusion. All right, so I think Trifecta, very early stage, but has some high quality, reduced intrusive type targets that might play out and pan out to be big discoveries. Who knows?